I lost my dream job because of my manager's lies. She smiled online about empowering women while ruining my career. For years, I stayed silent, rebuilding my life quietly. Then I got a second chance, and this time I held the truth in my hands. What happened next changed both our lives forever. Before going to forward in story, please subscribe my channel and like and share this video. Now come the story. Throwaway account because some people in this story are still in my industry and I don't want this tied back to me. I'm also nervous writing this because part of me still feels like the villain, even though everyone I've told this to says I'm not. I used to think revenge was something dramatic people talked about online. I thought real adults just moved on. I thought I was a forgiving person. Then someone destroyed my career in the most polite, professional, and socially acceptable way possible. I was 27 when this started. I had just landed a job at a marketing agency I really admired. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, but I was proud. I worked hard in university, did internships, built a portfolio, and finally felt like my life was starting. My manager was a woman named Lena. Early 30s, confident, polished, everyone loved her. She posted about women supporting women, leadership, and mentoring on LinkedIn and Instagram. She was the kind of person people called a role model. At first, I admired her. I thought I was lucky to have a female manager who talked about empowerment. The first few months were great. She praised my work, gave me opportunities, said I was talented. I worked extra hours because I wanted to prove myself. Then small things started happening. I'd share ideas in our one-on-one meetings, and later I'd see her presenting those same ideas to leadership as if they were hers. At first, I thought it was just how management worked. Maybe she forgot to credit me. Maybe I was overthinking. Then it kept happening. She started giving me unrealistic deadlines, like asking for full campaign plans in a few hours. When I struggled, she'd say things like, "I thought you were more organized," in front of others, with a sweet smile that made it sound like a joke. People laughed, but I felt embarrassed. One night, she emailed me at 10 p.m. asking for a report by 8 a.m. I stayed up all night, finished it, sent it early. In the meeting, she said, "This was rushed, so it's not perfect, but we'll refine it." Everyone looked at me like I was careless. That's when I started saving emails and messages. Something felt off. The big turning point was a major campaign for a huge client. I came up with a concept that the client loved. They literally said it was the reason they chose our agency. Lena was in the meeting, smiling and nodding. After the meeting, she told me I did amazing and that this could be huge for my career. A week later, I overheard her telling the director that the concept was mostly hers and that I helped with execution. I confronted her gently, thinking maybe it was just a misunderstanding. She laughed and said, "This is how teamwork works. You'll get your chance." I felt sick, but I stayed quiet. I needed the job, I needed the money, and I didn't want to be seen as difficult. Then the disaster happened. There was a compliance issue in a campaign. It involved legal approval, which Lena handled personally. The client complained, leadership panicked. In the internal meeting, Lena calmly said that I misunderstood the legal guidelines and pushed the wrong version. She said I assumed I knew the process. I froze. I had emails showing she approved the version, but she was calm, confident, and respected. I was nervous, junior, and emotional. Guess who they believed? After that, people treated me differently. They double-checked my work. They stopped trusting me with important tasks. I felt like I was constantly being watched. 3 months later, I was fired for performance issues. Just like that. No drama, no shouting, just HR and a polite conversation. I cried for weeks. I felt stupid, betrayed, and humiliated. My confidence was gone. I started doubting everything about myself. And Lena, she got promoted. She posted on LinkedIn about leading teams through challenges and mentoring young professionals. Women praised her, people called her an inspiration. I wanted to scream every time I saw her posts. For a year, I tried to rebuild my life. I got another job, but I was paranoid. I overworked. I thought everyone was secretly judging me. Therapy helped a bit, but the anger never fully left. Friends told me to forget her. My parents told me to focus on the future. Everyone said, "You won't even remember this in 10 years." But every time I thought about her smiling and talking about empowering women while destroying me, I felt sick. Then something happened that changed everything. A year later, I joined a new company. It was bigger, more corporate, and very focused on ethics and culture. One day, an internal email went out announcing candidates for a senior leadership role. One of the names made my stomach drop: Lena. She had applied for a senior manager role in my department. I stared at my screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to laugh, part of me wanted to cry, part of me wanted to quit. I wasn't on the hiring committee. I wasn't important enough for that. I was just a mid-level employee. But I had something she didn't know about: proof. I never deleted the emails, the approvals, the drafts, the messages where she blamed me for things she approved. I kept everything. I didn't know why at the time. Maybe part of me knew I'd need them one day. My company encouraged employees to share relevant feedback about candidates. They even said you could contact HR confidentially if you had worked with a candidate before. When I saw that email, my hands were shaking. I opened my old folder. Hundreds of screenshots and emails stared back at me. I didn't know if I should do it. Part of me felt petty, part of me felt scared, part of me felt powerful for the first time in years. I waited until Lena reached the final in-person interview day. Then I wrote to HR. I kept it calm, professional, non-emotional. I said I worked under Lena before and wanted to share my experience. I attached emails showing she approved the campaign version she later blamed on me. I showed messages where she took credit for my work. I explained how she misrepresented events to leadership. I didn't insult her. I didn't exaggerate. I just sent facts. Then I waited. After I sent that email to HR, I almost regretted it immediately. My hands were shaking. I kept thinking, what if they ignore it? What if they tell Lena? What if this ruins my career? I had finally rebuilt my life after being fired, and here I was risking everything again because of someone who probably didn't even think about me anymore. For a week, nothing happened. Lena continued the interview process like normal. People in the office talked about how impressive she was, how she had experience, how she would be a great leader. Every time I heard her name, my stomach twisted. Then HR replied. It was a short, polite email thanking me for sharing my experience and asking if I was willing to talk confidentially with someone from the people and culture team. They said it would not be shared with the candidate. I stared at that email for a long time. Part of me wanted to say no and disappear, but another part remembered how small and powerless I felt in that meeting where she blamed me. So I said yes. They scheduled a call with an HR manager and someone from legal. They were calm, neutral, professional. They didn't seem shocked, but they listened carefully. I explained everything: how she took credit for my ideas, how she approved a legally risky campaign and later blamed me, how I was fired while she got promoted. I shared more emails and screenshots. I explained the context, but I tried to stay calm and factual. They asked a lot of questions. Did I ever formally complain? Did anyone witness these events? Did I have performance reviews? Did I ever confront her? I felt like I was on trial, but I answered honestly. I admitted I was young and scared. I didn't complain because she was my manager and everyone loved her. I said I had positive reviews before the incident. They thanked me and said they would consider the information as part of their process. After the call, I felt empty, like I had reopened an old wound. For 2 weeks, nothing changed. Lena continued interviewing. People were excited about her. I started thinking maybe this was all pointless. Maybe she would get the job anyway, and I would just look bitter if anyone found out. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, I noticed people whispering in the office. HR booked meetings with several people who had worked with Lena before. Apparently, our company contacted her previous employers for deeper reference checks than usual. I didn't know if that was because of me or just standard process, but it felt connected. Then Lena came in for a final in-person interview day. I saw her in the hallway. She looked the same, polished, confident, smiling. She didn't recognize me at first. When she did, her smile froze for half a second. She said my name like a question. I said hi, politely. She said something generic about it being nice to see a familiar face. I wondered if she remembered what she did, or if I was just another junior employee she had forgotten. After her interviews, I heard mixed feedback. Leadership liked her experience, but some people had concerns about her management style based on references. Someone mentioned that she had a pattern of taking credit for teamwork. Someone else said she was known for throwing people under the bus when things went wrong. I didn't know if that came from me or others. Maybe I wasn't the only one who had spoken up. A week later, the company announced they were not moving forward with her candidacy. No explanation, just a generic internal update. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. I had stopped her from getting a powerful job, but I also knew she had stopped me from having a career at that company years ago. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A month later, Lena messaged me on LinkedIn. I hadn't spoken to her in over a year. Seeing her name in my inbox made my heart race. Her message was polite and friendly. She said it was nice seeing me during interviews and asked how I was doing. She said she was curious about my role and the company culture. At first, when I heard Lena had been fired, I thought that would be the end of it. I honestly expected to feel happy, or satisfied, or victorious. Instead, I felt weirdly empty, like I had spent years carrying this heavy thing inside me, and now that it was gone, I didn't know what to do with the space it left. I tried to focus on my job. I tried to forget about her. But life doesn't really work like that. A few weeks after I heard about her firing, I got a LinkedIn message from a name I didn't recognize. It was from a recruiter who said they were working with Lena and wanted informal references from people who had worked with her in the past. They asked if I would be open to a short call. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. I had already said enough. I had already done enough. But another part of me felt like ignoring it would be letting the story fade into ambiguity again. So I agreed to a call. The recruiter was polite and neutral. She asked about Lena's strengths, weaknesses, leadership style, how she handled conflict, how she supported junior employees. I kept it balanced. I mentioned that Lena was articulate, organized, and good at presenting to leadership. I also mentioned that she had a pattern of taking credit for others' work and shifting blame downward, with examples. The recruiter asked if I had documentation. I said yes. I didn't send it immediately. I asked if they really needed it because I didn't want to escalate unnecessarily. She said they were seeing mixed feedback and wanted clarity because Lena was being considered for a senior leadership role. So I sent a curated set of emails and messages. Nothing dramatic, just proof of approvals, proof of credit being taken, proof of blame shifting. A few days later, Lena didn't get that role either. That's when things got personal. One night, around 11 p.m., I got a long message from Lena. Not LinkedIn professional, not polite. Long, emotional, direct. She said she knew it was me. She said she had talked to people in the industry and my name kept coming up whenever she lost opportunities. She said it felt like someone was following her and poisoning the well. She said she never meant to hurt me and that she felt betrayed that I would sabotage her career years later. My heart was racing while reading it. I reread it several times. She sounded angry, but also scared, and also, for the first time, human. I didn't reply immediately. I slept on it. I didn't sleep well. The next day, I replied calmly. I said I never lied about her, never harassed her, and never contacted companies unsolicited. I said when people asked for references, I told the truth and shared documentation. I said if that affected her career, that was a consequence of her actions, not sabotage. She replied with a long message about how management is complicated, how people misunderstand things, how she was under pressure, how she thought I was strong enough to handle things, how she never expected me to be fired, how leadership made that decision. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me felt validation. She was finally acknowledging something. Part of me felt exhausted. And part of me felt something darker, because she still wasn't fully taking responsibility. She was still framing everything as misunderstandings and pressure and circumstances. I replied once more. I said being strong doesn't mean being disposable. I said managers have power and responsibility. I said her decisions had consequences for my life, and I was simply being honest when asked. She never replied after that. I thought that would be the last interaction. It wasn't. A few months later, I was invited to speak on a panel about early career growth and mentorship at a local tech event. Nothing huge, but a nice opportunity. I talked about challenges, toxic workplaces, and the importance of documentation and self-advocacy. After the panel, a woman approached me. She said she used to work under Lena at a different company. She said she recognized Lena's patterns when I described them, even without naming her. She told me Lena had done similar things to her, took credit, blamed her for mistakes, undermined her confidence. She said she left that job partly because of Lena. She thanked me for speaking openly. She said it made her feel less crazy. That conversation stayed with me. I started to realize this wasn't just about me. Lena wasn't a monster, but she was a pattern, and patterns only change when they're exposed. Around this time, I started to notice a shift in how people talked about her. Not publicly, not dramatically, but in quieter ways. Recruiters were more cautious. People would ask specific questions. Her LinkedIn posts got fewer engagement. She still had a career, but the fast upward trajectory was gone. One day, I saw her post about starting a coaching program focused on ethical leadership and transparent management. The irony almost made me laugh out loud. Then, unexpectedly, she emailed me directly. Not LinkedIn, email. She said she was doing a lot of reflection and wanted to talk. She asked if I would be open to a call, not as enemies, but as two people who had hurt each other in different ways. I stared at that email for hours. I didn't know what I wanted. Closure? Apology? Revenge? Silence? I agreed to a call. We spoke for about an hour. It was strange hearing her voice again after all these years. She sounded tired. Not defensive like in messages, but tired. She admitted she had been insecure early in her career. She admitted she felt pressure to prove herself and sometimes took shortcuts. She admitted she had blamed people unfairly. She said she didn't realize how much damage it caused. She also said she felt like I destroyed her reputation. That sentence sat heavy in the air. I told her she destroyed mine first. I told her I lost a job, confidence, and years of peace because of her. I told her I never planned revenge. I just kept documents and told the truth when asked. She was quiet for a long time. She apologized. Not a corporate apology, not a LinkedIn apology. A real, awkward, imperfect apology. I didn't feel the relief I expected. I felt tired. After the call, I felt conflicted. I had wanted revenge. I had wanted justice. I had wanted consequences. Now she was facing consequences and reflecting, and I wasn't sure how I felt. Did I go too far? Did I do exactly what needed to be done? Was I any better than her now that I had quietly influenced her career path? I didn't have clear answers. Then something happened that shifted my perspective again. A former intern from the agency messaged me. She said she was considering legal action against Lena for workplace bullying and wrongful termination patterns, and Lena's name kept coming up in internal exit interviews and anonymous surveys. HR at that old agency had quietly started an internal review because turnover in Lena's teams was unusually high. She asked if I would be willing to share my documentation and story if it came to that. I said I needed time to think. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the meeting where Lena blamed me, the day I was fired, the months of self-doubt, the way she smiled in LinkedIn posts about empowering women. And I kept replaying her voice on that call when she apologized. She didn't sound evil. She sounded human, flawed, defensive, insecure. But insecurity doesn't excuse power abuse. The next day, I agreed to share my documentation with the intern's lawyer under confidentiality. I didn't know if it would be used. I just knew I was tired of pretending nothing happened. A few weeks later, I got an email from a law firm asking if I would be willing to give a statement. They said multiple former employees had similar stories, and my documentation was unusually detailed. I felt sick.
Not because I didn't believe the stories, because this was becoming real. I gave a statement, I kept it factual, dates, emails, approvals, meeting notes, no emotional language, just evidence. Around that time, rumors started circulating in our industry. Nothing explicit, but people talked. People asked careful questions. Lena's name started coming with a quiet pause in conversations. She messaged me again. She said she heard people were filing complaints and asked if I was involved. She said she felt like her entire career was collapsing over old misunderstandings. She said she was in therapy, trying to be better, and this felt like being punished forever. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Another part of me wanted to send her screenshots of my termination email. I replied honestly. I said people had the right to share their experiences. I said consequences can come late, but there's still consequences. I said I never orchestrated anything. I was just no longer silent. She never replied after that. Months passed. The legal process moved slowly. I wasn't in the center of it, but I was connected enough to know what was happening. The agency conducted an internal investigation. They found patterns of behavior complaints in multiple teams she led. They couldn't publicly blame her for everything, but they quietly settled with at least one former employee. Lena's public image took a hit. Not a viral scandal, no headlines, just subtle industry reputation damage. Recruiters stopped pushing her for senior leadership roles. She started doing consulting and coaching instead of climbing corporate ladders. One day, I saw her post about reinventing herself after corporate trauma. The comments were supportive, but some people knew the other side. And I started to feel complicated. I had wanted justice, I had wanted accountability. I got it. But I also felt like I had changed. I was more suspicious, more strategic, less trusting. I started documenting everything at work, even when nothing was wrong. I started thinking about power dynamics constantly. I started wondering if I had crossed from victim to quiet enforcer. One evening, I got an email from HR at my current company. They were doing a training on ethical leadership and invited me to share my experience anonymously as a case study.
It's been a few years since all of this happened, and I still think about it more than I'd like to admit. Not every day, not in an obsessive way, but in quiet moments when I'm reflecting on who I am and how I got here. Back when I was fired, I felt like a victim of a system I didn't understand. Now I understand it too well. After that conference where Lena thanked me, I went home and just sat in my apartment for a long time. I kept replaying her words. You probably saved me from becoming worse. I didn't know if that was true. I didn't know if I cared. I thought revenge would feel like fireworks, like justice served with dramatic music. Instead, it felt like paperwork, emails, and quiet conversations with HR and recruiters. It felt slow, bureaucratic, and oddly lonely. People online love to talk about karma and revenge, but they don't talk about how messy it feels when you're actually part of it. In the years since, my career has stabilized. I'm doing well. I'm in a senior role now. People respect me. I mentor juniors, and I'm hyper-aware of how much power small decisions can have over someone's life. Sometimes I catch myself hesitating before giving feedback, worried that I might unintentionally become someone's Lena. I document everything. I over-communicate. I make sure credit is given publicly. I defend juniors when mistakes happen instead of looking for someone to blame. Part of that is because I genuinely believe in ethical leadership. Part of it is because I'm terrified of becoming the villain in someone else's Reddit story. As for Lena, I see her occasionally online. She's doing coaching, consulting, workshops on ethical leadership. Some people call her inspiring. Some people quietly avoid her. She's not a corporate superstar anymore, but she's not ruined either. She adapted. We've messaged a few times since that conference. Nothing deep, just professional check-ins. She once told me she still feels like she's paying for her younger self's mistakes. I told her that most of us do, in some way. Do I feel bad? Sometimes. I know my actions directly affected her career. I know I influenced how recruiters and companies saw her. I know I contributed to a legal complaint that likely cost her money and reputation. But I also know she cost me years of confidence, income, and peace. And the hardest truth I've learned is this: two things can be true at the same time. She can be a flawed human under pressure, and she can be someone who abused power and deserved consequences. Would I do it again? I think about that a lot. If I could go back, I wish I had spoken up earlier. I wish I had filed formal complaints instead of silently collecting screenshots. I wish I had known that silence protects the person in power, not the person being hurt. But given the situation as it was, yes, I would still share the truth when asked. I would still provide documentation. I would still refuse to protect someone who didn't protect me. What I wouldn't do is let it consume me the way it did. For a long time, Lena lived in my head rent-free. Every career move I made felt connected to her. Every success felt like proof that she was wrong. Every opportunity she lost felt like a scorecard. That wasn't healthy. The real revenge, if you can call it that, wasn't watching her career slow down. It was rebuilding mine. It was sitting in meetings now and knowing I belonged there. It was mentoring people and breaking the pattern she represented. Sometimes I wonder how many people quietly influence each other's careers like this, through references, whispers, documentation, and honest conversations. Corporate revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, polite, and disguised as process. And honestly, that scares me more than any dramatic story. If you're reading this and dealing with a Lena in your life, document everything. Speak up early if you can. Don't let someone else's insecurity define your career. And if you're a Lena, intentionally or not, remember how much power you have over people who are just starting out. One sentence in a meeting can change someone's life. I don't hate her anymore. I don't love what I did, but I don't regret it either. I see it as a chapter that taught us both something we might never have learned otherwise. Life didn't give us a clean villain and hero ending. It gave us consequences, growth, and a very uncomfortable kind of balance. And honestly, that feels more real than any revenge fantasy.